Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and a pleasant greetings to each and everyone. The seventh group will be discussing or presenting this remedial vocabulary instruction. I'll be doing the first part. I am followed by Nashihaya Kapal, followed by Fatima Binasing, and of course followed by PD Pascan Panundi. As we all know, vocabulary is crucial in one's learning journey. This acts as the foundation for, let's say, comprehension, expression, and our overall academic success. Now, I want you to understand that learning or acquiring vocabulary is not just limited for kindergarten or elementary, because even high school, college, or professionals are continually learning, because we cannot assume that we know everything. Now, it is important to remember that remedial doesn't mean deficient. It simply means providing target support to build vocabulary skills effectively. So, ganito na lang. When we want to learn or acquire vocabulary, think of it like a building blocks or building a house. You cannot construct a strong structure without the sturdy bricks. Make sense? I agree. Now here in the next slide, we could see the challenges. While the importance of vocabulary is undeniable, acquiring new words can be challenging as well. For instance, the presence of here multiple meanings. There are words that has multiple meanings, and it would be really difficult for us to understand it. Now, there is also the idea of memory decay. We tend to forget words quickly if we don't actively and we don't review it in our daily conversation. And of course, our individual differences. Some are passive learners and some are active learners. However, the study on desirable difficulties in vocabulary learning by Bjork and Kroll, it suggests that introducing challenges during the learning process, such as varying learning conditions, spacing out, practice session, and using tests as a learning event, can actually enhance long-term retention and transfer. This is applicable for learners, no? Wherein the study on what does it take to learn words by Samuelson and McMurray emphasized the role of rich and structured input in facilitating vocabulary acquisition. Now, let us begin with the actual content of remedial vocabulary instruction. With that comprehensive introduction, for this presentation, we are going to talk about how students acquire vocabulary, the different level of word language, and of course, the 5 phases of teaching vocabulary. Now, let us begin with how vocabulary is acquired. Now, vocabulary acquisition happens in several ways, but we listed here 4. First, there is incidental learning. This is the natural way we pick up words through reading, conversation, and everyday experiences. We are constantly exposed to new vocabulary in various contexts, and our brain gradually absorbs these words. For example, a child might hear their parents use words such as the word serendipitous in a daily basis, so to describe finding a lost toy. Of course, the child would be too exposed with that word, and they would tend to really understand the meaning. So that's how incidental learning happens. Now, then there's the direct instruction. This involves the explicit teaching of vocabulary, providing definition, example, and practice exercises. Think of a teacher explaining the meaning of ubiquitous, the word ubiquitous, and then giving example of ubiquitous. It could be through flashcards, or let's say the teacher simply listing those words in the blackboard. So that is direct instruction. The teacher is actually there to teach the word to the students. So that is one way of acquiring vocabulary. Next, we have self-instruction. This is when students actively seek out of the meaning or of new words, perhaps using a dictionary, thesaurus, or online resources. For example, a student encountering ephemeral, the word ephemeral in a book, because of the student is fond of reading books or a novel. and then they might look up its meaning to ensure complete understanding. Or it could be asking more knowledgeable individual about this word, and that is self-instruction. Finally, mental manipulation. This plays a key role that we learn words through the process of thinking, speaking, and of course, writing. The more we use a word, the better we understand and remember it. That is the idea of mental manipulation. Now, here in the next slide is the level of word knowledge. According to Isabel Beck, Margaret McKeon, and Richard Amundsen on 1987, they described 5 levels of word knowledge. What are they? So let's begin with the first level, which is no knowledge at all. This literally means that the student has never encountered the word before. Now, here comes the general information level. Here, the student has an unclear understanding of a word, possibly knowing the word's general category but not its precise meaning. Parang exposed lang siya sa word, pero hindi talaga alam kung ano yung ibig sabihin ng word na yun. Then, third phase is the narrow recognition. From the word itself, narrow recognition, this is usually a context bound where the student understands the word only in specific context. For example, Filipinos. Filipino tend to understand the word salvage as torture. That is widely acceptable in our context. Here in the Philippine English, it could be, yes, possible. But we cannot apply the same in global English because salvage doesn't actually mean torture. And that is the example of narrow recognition. Next is need to hesitate to remember a meaning. The student recognizes the word but needs to pause and think of or recall its meaning. They might know, for example, the word tenacious, but need a moment to remember its exact meaning. This is more likely for those who are really learning vocabulary. They learn the meaning of a particular word and they encounter that in a sentence. They may pause and because they are not that sure about the exact meaning, but that's still in the fourth level of knowledge level. And of course, the highest level is the easy recognition and full knowledge. The student here fully understands word meaning and can use it accurately and fluently. They can readily recall and apply the word. For example, the word ephemeral, just like what I have mentioned kanina, ephemeral in various contexts. Kahit saan sila dalhin, kaya nilang gamitin yung word na ephemeral kasi alam nila yung literal meaning ng ephemeral. Now, let's delve into the 5 phases of vocabulary instruction. First, we have the disposition. This phase is about motivating students to engage with new words. It is all about opening their minds and creating a positive mindset towards vocabulary learning. We want students to be curious, enthusiastic, and ready to explore new words, right? That is the initial phase. Let them engage with these words. For example, we can start by engaging question or intriguing stories that relate to the target words. In that way, let them engage with those new words and be exposed to it. The next phase is integration. This is about establishing connection between new words and the student's existing knowledge. So here we want to bridge the gap between what they already know and what they are learning. This helps make the learning process more meaningful and of course more memorable. Now, the third phase is about repetition. We are all fond of repetition, no? This involves providing opportunities for students to practice the new word or new vocabulary over and over again, over time. So the repetition is essential for moving from conscious learning to subconscious mastery. It is about making the word stick in their mind and becoming part of their active vocabulary. So, sabi nga nila, repetition is a key to retention. Now, the fourth phase is interaction and meaningful use. This is about creating opportunities for students to use the new words in real-world situation. This is where the learning becomes truly active and engaging. And of course, finally, the final phase, self-instruction. Na-mention na to sa first part, but then yeah, self-instruction. This is about encouraging students to maintain awareness of new words outside of the classroom. So it's more on let them explore, let them understand word, let them search for it, let them converse with people. And the goal is to create independent learner who can contribute to build their own vocabulary on their own. Now, that is all for my part. I believe the next part would be discussed by Kapala na Srihaya.